The case of Isaac Apodaca centers on the October 2022 death of 21-year-old Grace Jennings in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Prosecutors allege that Isaac Apodaca and his girlfriend, Kiara McCulley, planned and carried out Jennings' murder after luring her to their residence. Prosecution has relied on witness testimony, digital communications, internet search history, and forensic evidence to support their case. The defense challenges both the interpretation and reliability of key evidence. As with every criminal case, Isaac Apodaca is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law.
Good afternoon. I'm going to place you under oath. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and the penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat. You begin by stating your name for a record. See, you have some documents. Don't refer to any documents unless
That's
you're
fine.
directed to by the. If you just close your.
Sure.
If you begin by introducing yourself to the jury by stating your name and spelling it for our record, please.
Yes, my name is Rosalind Archuleta. First name is Roslynd. Last name is Archuleta, Archuleta.
Murphy, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell the jury what you do for a living?
Yes, I am a forensic scientist in the DNA unit at the New Mexico Department of Public Safety Forensic Laboratory here in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
We just heard from Mr. Jeffrey Smith from the latent unit. Do the latent and the DNA units work kind of near each other?
They're near each other. We're in the same laboratory, but in different sections.
Okay. And how long have you been with the New Mexico Department of Public Safety Forensic Laboratory?
About 18 and a half years now.
Okay. What's your role there?
I am a forensic scientist primarily, but I also supervise the DNA section.
Okay. And what's your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology in Socorro, New Mexico. I also have some clinical laboratory casework from the University of New Mexico Medical Laboratory Sciences program. After that, I started employment at Genzyme Genetics in Santa Fe, and then I moved to the Department of Public Safety to start work as a forensic scientist.
What are your duties include as a forensic scientist in the DNA section?
What I do is I look at crime scene evidence that has been collected by law enforcement and has been submitted to our laboratory to determine whether or not there might be biological material on an item of evidence so that I can collect a sample from that and then proceed with DNA testing. I also look at known DNA standards or reference samples that are collected from an individual. Those are different in the fact that they have their own chain of custody. We know they came from a particular individual, and those are submitted to the laboratory for comparison purposes to any evidence profiles that might be generated. Once I perform evidence examinations, I move forward with the DNA testing steps, make any conclusions, and then write a report with my findings.
Okay. And is the New Mexico Department of Public Safety crime lab or forensic laboratory, is it accredited?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell the jury about that?
Yes, we are accredited by A2LA, which is the American Association for Laboratory Accreditation. And what that means is that our laboratory is recognized by an outside agency, and they recognize the fact that by examining all of our processes, we are staffed with fully qualified and competent scientists to perform casework on, or to perform testing on casework samples.
Have you ever testified as an expert witness?
Yes, I have.
Roughly how many times?
I believe today is 73.
Okay. And have you been qualified as an expert in forensic DNA analysis and serology?
Yes.
Okay. And do you teach and train in your field?
I do. I have taught law enforcement. I've also taught one semester of a college course as well.
Okay. And are you a member of any professional organizations?
Yes, I belong to both AFS, which is the, American Association of Forensic Scientists. I believe that's correct. And also the Southwestern Association for Forensic Sciences.
Your Honor, at this time I tender Ms. Archuleta as an expert witness in forensic DNA analysis and serology.
No objection, Your Honor.
She is so received. You need to discuss what serology is.
Yes, Judge. What is serology?
Excuse me. Serology is a process of testing that I can perform when I'm examining casework that helps me determine what type of biological fluid may or may not be present. So for example, I have a color change test that helps indicate whether or not blood may or may not be present on an item. Should I perform that test on a stain that might warrant that type of testing? I look for a color change. I look for a bright pink color that indicates to me that blood, in fact, is indicated on that item. It looks like blood, it acts like blood, and for all intents and purposes, it appears to be blood. So I can collect a sample from that and move forward with testing and see if I find human DNA on that item and therefore arrive at a DNA profile. If that color change does not occur, then blood is not present on that item.
And when you're talking about this color change to pink, the item itself doesn't have a color change, does it? It's just like a swab you take from the item?
Correct. It would be a swab that I would moisten and then swab any staining that I might find on the surface of an item. And then I test that swab, either by taking a small cutting of it or testing the swab itself to determine if there's a color change from that material that was collected from the item.
Okay, let's have you define a couple of terms. You've already defined a known standard or a DNA standard,
Yes.
or a reference sample, as it's sometimes called. But what is DNA?
DNA is the biological material within almost all of your cells. The only exception to that is a red blood cell, because red blood cells don't have a nucleus. So it's the genetic information inside of your body that helps code for who you are as an individual. You get half of the DNA from your mother and half of the DNA from your father. That makes you as a unique individual. There are small portions of that DNA that are very unique to each individual. Some of our information codes for the same types of things. It gives you 2 arms and 2 legs. But we look at unique information. Some of it might give us things like maybe you have blue eyes or brown eyes. But the information that I look at as a forensic scientist is unique in nature and doesn't code for any information, but it's very highly variable between individuals.
What type of cells, you mentioned that blood cells cannot leave, or they don't have a nucleus, but what forms of DNA may you be able to pick up? Or how is DNA left behind, I guess is a better way of asking that.
DNA can be left behind in various different ways. For example, if I'm speaking, I'm not wearing a mask right now, I might have little bits of saliva on the surface in front of me. That saliva has skin cells inside of it that have a nucleus. When we're talking about whether or not there might be a blood stain on an item, those red blood cells don't have a nucleus, but there are white blood cells inside of your blood that do have a nucleus. And so we can still get DNA from blood. There's also the possibility of obtaining DNA sample from semen left behind from, any sort of interaction. And so we can also obtain DNA from hairs as well. Various different materials that come from the body can be left behind on surfaces, including skin cells.
And speaking of skin cells, what is touch DNA?
Touch DNA would be, so for example, if I had a water bottle and I pick up that water bottle repeatedly, I might be leaving skin cells behind on that item. And so that would be DNA that is left behind from me touching that item, and I might be able to swab for that and find my DNA profile.
Is it possible for someone to touch or handle an item but not leave detectable amounts of DNA behind?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Can you talk about circumstances under which DNA may or may not be detectable?
Yes. Firstly, DNA may not be detectable because somebody might not have touched an item. It may also not be detectable because maybe somebody wore gloves, presuming that we're talking about handling an item with our hands. It may also not be detectable or may be very low in quantity because somebody might have touched it for a very short period of time. Or maybe they did not leave very many skin cells behind, even if they held it for longer. So the reasons that a person might not leave DNA behind can vary.
Thank you. What is a major profile and a minor profile?
When we are talking about DNA testing, it's important to know that when we are looking at the DNA, what I see is a picture of the DNA, or what we call an electropherogram. It's a fancy word for a visual representation of the pieces of DNA that have come from that item of evidence. I can tell by looking at that DNA profile or the electropherogram, that picture of the DNA, whether or not there might be one individual there or whether or not there might be multiple individuals in that DNA profile. So when I'm talking about a major or a minor DNA profile, I'm talking about a DNA mixture. So a DNA mixture is a combination of DNA from at least two individuals, if not possibly more. So going back to the example of the water bottle, if I take a drink of that water bottle and I'm the only person that takes a drink of that water bottle, I expect to find my own DNA there and nobody else's. But if I share that water bottle with one of my friends, I would expect to see DNA from two people there because we're both sharing that water bottle. Now, if my friend came by and took just a quick little swig and put it down and went about their business, I would expect to see probably a lower amount of DNA in that DNA mixture. However, if that friend of mine took my water bottle and really liked, what I had in my bottle, and kept drinking from that, I would expect they would leave a lot more DNA behind, possibly even more than me if they took it from me and didn't give it back. And so I might be able to see that there is a difference in the amount of DNA present. So I might be able to see one person's DNA profile higher or in more quantity than the other person's DNA profile. And in that case, that would be a major DNA profile because I can see that major contributor. And on the flip side of that, there would be a contributor that is lesser in quantity. And so that would be the minor DNA profile.
Okay. And you mentioned the concept of quantity. What happens if there's not, is there a threshold you have to meet in order to say whether it's someone's DNA or not someone's DNA? Or to draw any conclusions from the amount of DNA or
yes.
the DNA?
Yes. So our protocol gives us guidelines that help us to determine whether there is enough DNA present in a sample in order to interpret that DNA profile. When there is a very low quantity, we might not be able to make any interpretation. Quite often that might happen with a minor DNA profile. If I'm seeing a very small amount of DNA in that minor component of a mixture, I might not be able to make any interpretation or comparisons to that. There is also a situation in which I could have a single source profile, and maybe there's just not a lot of DNA present there. And when I have that situation, I don't have enough information to make any interpretation, so I may at that point need to call that DNA profile insufficient in quantity and not be able to make comparisons to that as well.
I'll just ask you to explain very briefly to the jury, as briefly as possible to the jury, the process by which you are assigned a case, receive the items from a case, and the serology and DNA testing process.
When a case is brought to our laboratory by law enforcement, that case is taken to our evidence section, and the evidence technicians bring the case in, assign it a unique case number, and place that case in the vault and wait for a scientist to be ready to work the case. So when I am ready to work a case, I obtain a copy of the submission form, or what we call a board copy in-house. And what that is it's essentially a receipt between the laboratory and law enforcement that details the number of items that have been submitted in a case for testing and what type of testing is going to be performed. So when I have that copy of the submission form, I'm looking for items that are coming into the laboratory for DNA testing. And then I can request those items that I need to perform testing on from the evidence unit. When I do that, I will request those items of the evidence section, and when they have pulled those from the secure vault that I do not have access to, they have to transfer chain of custody over to me for those items of evidence. And when they do that, I have to put my password into a computer system to switch all of the chain of custody over to my name so that it's reflected that I have all of those items for testing. Once I'm ready to start work on the case, let me backtrack. When I have those items of evidence in my custody, I will take those up to my own locker that has its own unique code for me to get into and store my items of evidence. If I need to wait to start testing, I will put those in my locker, lock them up, and wait until I am ready to start evidence examinations. If I'm ready to start those right away, I might go directly to my bench to do that. When I perform that testing, I then look at evidence items first, and then I look at any reference items last, just so as to preserve the integrity of the evidence by examining the evidence first.
Okay, thank you. And you just talked about evidence integrity. What steps do you take, what if any steps do you take to avoid cross-contamination?
In the laboratory, we deal with this in multiple different ways. When we start testing, we are using clean instruments to perform testing. I am making sure that my bench is clean, everything is wiped down. We use bleach to decontaminate. I use clean bench paper. I use clean razor blades. Everything I touch has been bleached to ensure that there is no potential or very, very minimal potential for any sort of contamination from my bench itself. I am also using things like a crosslinker. A crosslinker is a machine that I can put items like tubes that I'm going to collect DNA samples in. I can put that in a crosslinker, and it helps break down any residual DNA that might be present on that item so that I have a clean tube to work with. In addition to that, we are always wiping down our laboratory on a routine basis. That is done by all laboratory personnel, both in the general laboratory and all equipment, as well as at our own benches. When I perform DNA testing on items, I am making sure that everything is clean, brand new, cross-linked under the UV light, and making sure that it is ready for use. In addition to that, we also use blanks. Our blanks during testing help us to determine that the steps of DNA testing are clean at every step. So I'm going to run reagent blanks with all of my samples to ensure that anything I add into my samples is clean. I expect to see no DNA profile if I'm adding reagents to that blank as I'm testing it. And so at every point of that testing process, we have steps that show us that, in fact, that testing is clean throughout the entire process up until we arrive at a DNA profile.
Thank you. So as you've described, if you have items of evidence that are assigned to you to examine, after you've examined them, do you yourself look for areas on an item that may be likely to have DNA on them?
Can you rephrase your question?
Yeah, that was poorly stated. I apologize. When you receive items that may have evidentiary value, is it you that determines where to swab or scrape or collect potential samples from?
Yes. When I examine an item of evidence, I'm looking primarily for any staining that may or may not be present and making notes about that. If there is staining, I might want to collect a sample to move forward with serology testing or with DNA testing. Sometimes I might look at an item and I might see that type of staining, and so I can move forward with those steps. However, I might look at an item and determine that maybe I need to test for who might have been wearing an item or who might have been touching an item. That is something we frequently do, for example, with handguns. We might take a swab of the handle of the gun, or the grip, the trigger area, to determine whose DNA might be present on those areas.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to educate the jury on regarding the DNA testing process before we just go ahead and jump into this case?
I think that's
Objection, Your
good.
Honor. Thank you.
Are you familiar with lab case 22-3858-DPS?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And was the corresponding, what was the agency that referred that case to you?
I'm sorry. May I refer to my report?
Sure, if that would refresh
Just to
your-
verify.
Objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. It was Santa Fe Police Department.
Okay, great. And how many evidentiary items and standards did you receive as part of this case?
There were 13 items total. 3 of them were DNA standards. The other items were evidentiary samples.
Were some items, then did you take, did you take swabs or cuttings from some of those items?
Yes.
Okay. So if I could just begin by talking about who you received known standards from.
Yes, I received known DNA standard from Kiara McCulley. That was item 8. Item 10 was a DNA standard from Isaac Apodaca, and item 16 was a DNA standard from Grace Jennings.
And on your report, do you also note the agency item number in addition to your own internally assigned lab item number?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and for today's purposes, would it be easiest to refer to your lab item number?
Yes, it would.
Okay. So those 3 standards are the ones that you received. What was item 1 in terms of the evidentiary items?
Item 1 was a blue sweater.
Okay. And when you examined that blue sweater, did you notice anything that led you to conduct additional testing on that item?
Yes, there was staining on the cuff area of the sweater on the right side.
Okay. And do you recall the color or the appearance of that staining?
To my recollection, it was red-brown in color.
Okay. And what swabs or cuttings did you take from that blue sweater, item number 1?
I did collect 2 separate samples from that. On the first sample, which I called item 1.1, this was a stain on the right cuff of the sweater. I performed serology testing on that item, and then I moved forward with DNA testing.
Okay. And if you could educate the jury about the results of your testing on item 1.1.
Yes, on item 1.1, blood was indicated on that item, and there was a DNA mixture of at least 2 individuals on item 1.1. The major DNA profile that was resolved from the mixture matched the DNA profile from Grace Jennings. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be a source of the DNA profile is approximately 1 in 24 octillion individuals. Both Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca are eliminated as sources of that major DNA profile, and I could not make any interpretation or comparisons to the minor component of that DNA mixture
Okay.
due to an insufficient quantity of DNA in the sample. So
You just mentioned a number of 24 octillion. Can
Yes.
you tell the jury what octillion is, an octillion?
Yes. So octillion is an incredibly large number. There are approximately 8 billion individuals on the entire Earth. So this number is much, much, much larger than that. And so in my opinion, I would not expect to see any other person with that DNA profile unless that person had an identical twin.
And just the number 24 octillion, how many zeros would that be roughly?
27, I believe.
So 24 followed by 27 zeros?
Yes.
Thank you. And you said that the minor profile component, you could not make any interpretations,
That's correct.
right? And then you mentioned item 1.2, what was that?
Yes, item 1.2 was a scraping and cutting of the inner neck area of that blue sweater
Okay. And why did you scrape that inner neck area of the sweater?
to determine who could have potentially been wearing that item.
Okay. And what did your testing reveal on that item?
On that item, there was a DNA mixture of at least 3 individuals. The major DNA profile resolved from that mixture matched the DNA profile from Kiara McCulley. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of that major DNA profile is approximately 1 in 360 octillion individuals. Both Grace Jennings and Isaac Apodaca were eliminated as a source of the major DNA profile that was resolved from that mixture. And I could not make any interpretation or comparisons regarding the minor component of that mixture due to an insufficient quantity of DNA in the sample.
Thank you. Item number 2, did you receive an item number 2 as a lab item number?
Yes.
And did that correspond to agency number, item number 5?
I don't recall what it corresponded to.
Okay, but you labeled.
As far as the agency number, sorry.
What was lab item number 2?
Lab item number 2 was a pair of black pants.
Okay. And what did you observe when you examined those black pants?
There was staining on the right leg of the pants.
Okay. And did you do anything regarding that staining?
I did perform both serology and DNA testing on those.
Okay. And what was the results of your serology testing from the staining on the front right leg of those pants?
Blood was indicated on that item.
And then you took it on to DNA testing?
Yes.
And what was the result of your DNA testing on 2.1, the swab from the staining of the pants?
The DNA profile that was obtained from item 2.1 matched the DNA profile from Grace Jennings.
Okay. And did you do any other additional testing on that item?
I did perform testing on the inner waistband of the pants.
And why did you test the inner waistband of those black pants?
Again, to determine who may have been wearing that item.
Okay. And on that item, was that 2.2?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And from that scraping or cutting from the inner waistband of those black pants, what did your testing resolve or reveal, excuse me?
There was a DNA mixture of at least 3 individuals on that item. Kiara McCulley, Isaac Apodaca, and Grace Jennings could not be eliminated as possible contributors to the DNA mixture obtained from that item.
And what do you mean when you say could not be eliminated?
In my opinion, they are included in that DNA mixture.
All 3 individuals, Kiara McCulley, Isaac Apodaca, and Grace Jennings, were included in that mixture?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 3. What was item number 3?
Item number 3 was a red t-shirt.
And did you perform any, did you swab any stains or take any scrapings or cuttings from that item?
I did.
All right. Let's talk about item 3.1. What was that?
Item 3.1 was a sample from the upper left side of the shirt near the shoulder. There was a red-brown stain in that area that I did perform serology testing on. Blood was indicated on that item, so I moved forward with DNA testing.
Okay. And what did your testing on that swab reveal?
On item 3.1, there was a DNA mixture of at least 2 individuals. A major unknown female DNA profile was resolved from that
May we
mixture.
approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take probably just about a 5-minute recess. If you would go with the bailiff, Angel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you will go with the bailiff, we'll bring you back in the courtroom in just a few minutes.
All right.
You may step down. Don't discuss your testimony with anyone during the break. Looks like there's an exhibit in front of you. Counsel, would you come and retrieve that? Looks like that's, what's that, 87?
84, I believe.
84. Yep. May be seated in the courtroom. The bailiff is going to identify the juror, and we'll call him back in first.
And actually, judges, since we're doing this, I mean, also if we could talk to the juror on the far right, front row, I suspected that. Well,
Okay, yeah, I don't know her name, and I didn't instruct the bailiff to find that out for me, but we'll check. We're off the record for a couple minutes. Let's go back on the record, and counsel, would you approach, please? you have your jury list? Borrow it. Well, not that one, the actual people. I've still got it here. We're off the record for a second. Come up and have a seat in this third chair right here.
Third, right here?
Yes, right there. I need to turn on that microphone and speak to you. The reason I asked you to come back in is during the last testimony of the last witness, it appeared that you fell asleep.
For an instant, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any idea of how long?
I caught my elbow went off the chair instantly, and I got a little nudge. I felt like it was instant.
Okay.
It was the same exact lawyer talking when I popped out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mentioned that inside.
Mentioned that inside.
I said, God, I can't believe I kind of nodded off. I said that to myself.
Okay.
I've been on the ball the whole time.
Yeah, hang on a second. With regard to the testimony, do you recall what the witness was testifying to, or the last question you remember hearing?
The ins and outs of the processes for the forensics.
Okay. Do you recall any of the individual item numbers that were discussed, or what was found or not found on those items?
Maybe not an item number, no, sir.
Okay, those are the court's questions. Counsel, do you have any questions? Mr. Long, Ms. Murphy?
You said it was on the background about the testing process?
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So have you heard the testimony so far about the results on the items that were tested?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm still not clear as to.
It was instant, Judge.
On behalf of Mr. Apodaca, any questions for our juror?
Yeah, so, I mean, I understand this is
Yes, sir.
a long
No,
testimony.
I'm very serious about this, sir.
Yeah, but you did hear what the conclusions were, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you just can't remember some
Just
of the
the item
individual
numbers.
You said you dozed off instantaneously?
Yeah, I mean, it was a nod off. That's it. I caught it.
So, you think you're gonna have trouble paying attention moving forward?
Absolutely not.
Okay, if the testimony was boring, because.
No, I'm very
This is a boring
serious.
stretch, something
Yeah.
the state and I will agree on. It's kind of a boring stretch, but it is important.
Yes, understood,
Okay.
absolutely.
Certainly the conclusions are important, and you were able to, can you tell me what you were able to garner from the conclusions?
Well, I understood that the forensics showed,
Objection, Your Honor, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. it's
Okay,
an
that's fine.
Inappropriate
Right.
question as to what is.
Okay, as long as, I mean,
I'm very serious about this, yes, sir.
okay, thank you. That's all I have there.
Thank you. Just ask that you go back to the jury room with the others. Don't discuss this conversation.
Absolutely.
What it was about. If you'd bring the other juror in. Off the record until she comes in. I would just ask you to come up to the third chair there by that microphone. I need to get your voice. The reason I asked the bailiff to bring you in is during the last presentation, it appeared that you might have nodded off during the
Oh, no, sir,
testimony.
not at all.
Okay,
What would make you think that?
just observations. I mean, I see people put their heads down, I see people close their eyes and don't know if they're listening but just not looking up, or if
Yeah.
they've actually.
I'm sure that was it.
do
Not at all sleepy.
Do you recall the sequence, the questions and answers that were being given by the witness?
Absolutely.
Those are the court's questions, counsel.
No questions.
At any point, did you fall asleep?
No, sir.
During the testimony? Okay, that's all I have here.
If you just go back to the jury room for a moment, don't discuss this conversation with the other jurors. Thank you. Okay, outside the hearing, please have a seat. Outside the hearing, presence of the jury with counsel and Mr. Apodaca present. The first gentleman is juror number 8 on your list. Concerns, input, suggestions, first from the state and then for the defense with respect to the first juror we called in.
Your Honor, he said it was an instant nod off that he caught himself as soon as it happened, and it was during the background information on the DNA testing process, and he's otherwise been awake and paying attention. It appears to have been literally instant. So the state thinks it's appropriate to keep him on. We would just ask for the defense position. Sorry, I just put a cough drop in while we're outside the jury presence. We would just ask for the defense presence position under State v. Lujan. It's not a reported case. It's 2024 Westlaw 390000101. I think just having a clear defense position on the record preserves, it makes a clear record.
Absolutely, Judge. I think he remedied the situation. I mean, he did say, he was honest, forthcoming. He did briefly dozed off. He did, sounds like he remembers the conclusions, although not the specific, the numbers that you were asking him about, but I think, frankly, a lot of these jurors may not remember some of those specifics. So I think I'm okay now. I mean, Mr. Cameron is handling this witness and a lot of stuff today, so I'll keep an eye on him. I do keep an eye on the jurors and just look over there, so I'll see if, he's dozing off again. I'm pretty sure now that he's been brought over here now, he's probably he's probably gonna make sure he stays away.
Yeah. So I'm just parroting back. Neither party is asking that the juror be removed, I didn't observe anything beyond what was mentioned, so he'll remain on the panel. The second juror, let me find her. I'm sorry, I can't find her juror number. While I'm looking, on behalf of the state, any concerns about her remaining on the panel?
No concerns, Your Honor. She was adamant. She has not dozed off.
And I agree with that, Judge. That was actually not today. It was earlier in the week that I had noticed her, and that was the thing with her. But then, like I said, I wasn't sure if she was just sleeping or if maybe her eyes were turned on.
The way I asked her the question, it implied that had just occurred, so I did not know your reference. Yeah. She's seated number 1, just for the records and for counsel. She's currently juror number 1.
And Judge, as far as that, I wouldn't just bring that up, but in regards to that one particular juror, or the first juror that we brought in, I do think it was more than instantaneous because I was observing him for a while. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked Mr. Cameron to have us approach. And he did say something like, when he woke up, he realized Ms. Murphy is still testifying, or questioning, excuse me. So it almost seems like he himself realized maybe he was out for a minute. But that's why I had concerns. But at this point, I think we proceed with him. Like I said, I can keep an eye on the jury and see what's going on.
Okay. We'll call the jury back in and continue with the same witness on the stand if he'll ever come in.
Yes, Judge.
We're off the record until the jury comes back.
All rise.
You come back up to the podium and get set up, Ms. Murphy. You may be seated in the courtroom. We continue in the state's case in chief. Ms. Murphy.
Ms. Archuleta, right before the break, we started talking about item 3.1, the stain from the left shoulder.
Yes,
Of the red shirt.
correct.
If you could explain to the jury your findings from the testing you conducted on item 3.1, the stain from the front shirt left shoulder of the red shirt.
Yes, there was a DNA mixture of at least 2 individuals on item 3.1. The major DNA profile that was resolved from the mixture was an unknown female DNA profile. Kiara McCulley, Isaac Apodaca, and Grace Jennings are all eliminated as the source of that major DNA profile, and no interpretation or comparisons could be made regarding the minor component of that mixture due to an insufficient quantity of DNA in the sample.
Okay. And was there an item 3.2 as it related to the red shirt?
Yes.
What was what did you do for 3.2?
The only difference in the testing from 3.1 to 3.2 is that 3.2 did not have any serology testing because it was a sample from the waistband. But the DNA profile that I arrived at was the same as item 3.1. A DNA mixture of at least 2 individuals was obtained from 3.2. The major DNA profile was an unknown female DNA profile, the same unknown DNA profile. And Kiara McCulley, Isaac Apodaca, and Grace Jennings were all eliminated as the source of that major DNA profile. No interpretation or comparisons could be made regarding the minor component of that DNA mixture due to an insufficient quantity of DNA in the sample.
And you said that it was a scraping or a sample from the waistband. Did you mean a different part of the shirt? The waist as a...
I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. I said the waistband. I was thinking about the pants when I said that, but it is the red shirt and it was the inner neck portion. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Okay. So 3.1 was the stain from the front of the shirt and 3.2 is a scraping from the inner neck band of the
That
shirt.
is correct. Yes.
Okay. And you stated that that was an unknown female profile and all three individuals were eliminated from that?
Correct.
Okay. All three of the known standards.
Correct.
Okay. Let's move to item 4. What was item 4?
Item 4 was a piece of tissue with staining on it.
Okay. And can you describe the staining?
There was red-brown staining on the item.
Okay. And if you could just, do you recall the agency item number that was associated with?
I do not recall.
Would looking at your report refresh your recollection on
Yes,
that?
it would.
Okay. So if you could please check your report and then close it back for what agency, SFPD agency item number 4 was.
It was agency item number 14.
All right. Thank you. Okay. And you said that on that item number 4, there was the red-brown staining. What testing did you perform on this item and what were your results?
I performed serology testing on that item and blood was indicated. I then moved forward with DNA testing and the DNA profile that was obtained from item 4 matched the DNA profile from Kiara McCulley. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of this DNA profile is approximately 1 in 360 octillion individuals. Grace Jennings and Isaac Apodaca were eliminated as the source of that DNA profile.
Okay. Let's move to item 5. What was item 5? What is item 5?
Item 5 is a sword.
Okay. And did you take any swabs from item 5?
I did. I took a sample of staining from the blade of the sword as well as a sample from the handle of the sword.
Okay. And what number is the swab of staining from the blade of the sword?
That is item 5.1.
Okay. And what was your testing and what were your results?
I did perform serology testing on that item and blood was indicated. On item 5.1, the DNA profile obtained from that item matched the DNA profile from Grace Jennings. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of this DNA profile is approximately 1 in 24 octillion individuals. Both Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca were eliminated as the source of this DNA profile.
Okay. Was there an item 5.2?
Yes.
And what was that?
This was a swab of the handle of the sword.
Okay. And what was your testing and what was your results?
I did perform serology testing on this item as well. On item 5.2, which was a swab from the handle of the sword, no blood was detected on that item. And then I moved forward with DNA testing to determine who might have been holding that item. And the DNA I found on that item was a DNA mixture of at least 2 individuals. There was a major DNA profile that matched the DNA profile from Kiara McCulley. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of this major DNA profile is approximately 1 in 360 octillion individuals. Grace Jennings and Isaac Apodaca were eliminated as the source of that major DNA profile, and no interpretation or comparisons could be made regarding the minor component of that mixture due to an insufficient quantity of DNA in the sample.
And you said it's at least 2 individuals in that mixture, is that correct?
To my recollection, yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving to item 7. So I guess I should ask you, your lab items are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 7, 8, 10, and so on. Why does it go from number 5 to number 7?
There were other items that were submitted that were not for DNA testing that were the items that are in between that.
Okay. Could that be like for latent testing or something else?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. So going to item 7, what was lab item 7?
Lab item 7 was a swab from, I believe it was behind the bed, or behind the headboard of the bed, on the wall there was a small room and garage that it was collected from.
Okay. And what was the testing that you performed on item 7, the swab abstained from the wall behind the bed. What was your testing and what did that reveal?
I did perform serology testing on that item. Blood was indicated on item 7. And on item 7, the DNA profile obtained from item 7 matched the DNA profile from Grace Jennings. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of this DNA profile is approximately 1 in 24 octillion individuals. Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca were both eliminated as the source of that DNA profile.
Moving to item number, what were 8 and 10? What were items 8 and 10?
Item 8 was a DNA standard from Kiara McCulley.
Okay.
And item 10 was the DNA standard from Isaac Apodaca.
Moving on to the next item that you tested that you list as lab item 13. What was that?
Item 13 was a swab from a pillow.
And do you remember the agency number that corresponded to?
I do not recall.
Would looking at your report refresh your recollection?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, may she please refer to her report?
Yes.
Item 13 corresponds to agency item number 96.
Okay. And what was your testing on item 13 and what did it reveal?
I did perform serology testing on that item and blood was indicated. On item 13, the DNA profile obtained from item 13 matched the DNA profile from Grace Jennings. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of this DNA profile is approximately 1 in 24 octillion individuals. Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca are eliminated as sources of the DNA profile obtained from this item.
Okay. Moving to the next item that you tested, item 14, and I will ask you if you know the agency item for that number.
Yes,
Or the agency number for that item.
Yes, I did look at that as well. And for item number 14, the agency item was item number 99.
Okay. And what was that?
And that item was a swab from sheets.
Okay. And what was your testing on that item and what did it reveal?
I performed serology testing on that item. Blood was indicated. When I performed the DNA testing on this item, the DNA profile obtained from item 14 matches the DNA profile from Grace Jennings. The probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of this DNA profile is approximately 1 in 24 octillion individuals. Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca are eliminated as sources of the DNA profile obtained from this item.
And moving to the next item that was in your list, what was item 16?
Item number 16 was a DNA standard for Grace Jennings.
Okay. Do you remember the agency number for that?
I do not.
Looking at your report, refresh your recollection.
Yes.
Your Honor, may she refer to her report?
Yes.
Item number 16 corresponds to agency item number 128.
Okay. And you said that was the DNA standard for Grace Jennings.
Correct.
Okay. Is that also called FTA blood spot?
Yes, that is the substrate sometimes that a sample might be placed on when they collect it.
Okay. That's what you used as your known DNA or reference standard for Grace.
Yes, that was what was submitted to the laboratory.
All right, thank you. Let's move to item 17 and the agency lab item numbers. What was that?
Item number 17 were the left fingernail clippings from Grace Jennings, and I collected a swab from under the nails. And I'm sorry, I'm not recalling the agency item number for this item.
Would looking at your report refresh your recollection?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, may she refer to her report?
Yes.
Thank you. The agency item number this corresponds to is 129.
Okay. And let's talk about fingernail clippings for a moment. What kind of fingernails were clipped?
To my recollection, these were artificial nails. They were long, colored, and thick, and they were stained.
Okay. And where on the nails did you swab?
I swabbed underneath the nails, so on the concave surface.
Okay. And you said that they were artificial nails. Can you kind of explain to the jury the interplay, if you know, between an artificial nail and a real fingernail?
Certainly. So when someone has an artificial nail, and I've had these before, a lot of girls do. It is a material, not always the same type of material. There are different types, but they're placed on top of the nails. I don't know much about that in particular. However, having worn them myself, quite frequently, when there is something placed on top of the nail, there is the natural nail underneath, and when that grows out, it can create a little bit of a lip where it collects debris and things. And so when artificial nails are placed on there, occasionally there is the potential for being able to recover DNA from that area.
Okay. And from that lip, or is it sometimes almost like a pocket that can kind of form?
Almost, yes. It's where the natural nail starts separating from the artificial.
Okay. And so let's talk about testing on item 17. What was the testing and what were your results?
On item 17, there was staining on that item. I did perform serology testing on that item, and blood was indicated. On item 17, there was a DNA mixture of at least 2 individuals. There was a major DNA profile that was resolved from the mixture, and that DNA profile, the major DNA profile, was consistent with being from Grace Jennings. That is because it has been collected from her body. Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca were eliminated as the source of that major DNA profile, and no interpretation or comparisons could be made regarding the minor component of that DNA mixture due to an insufficient quantity of DNA in the sample.
And when you discussed swabbing the clippings, how many of the fingernail clippings did you swab?
To my recollection, I believe there were 5 that I swabbed.
Okay.
But I don't recall whether or not there were small fragments off of them or not.
Okay. As to the left-hand fingernail clippings, you recall swabbing 5.
Yes.
Thank you. Now let's move to lab item number 18. What was 18, and if you recall the agency number for that?
I believe the agency item number for that is 130.
Okay, and what was your testing, or what was that item?
That item were the right-hand fingernail clippings from Grace Jennings, again swabbed under the concave surface of the nail.
Okay. And do you remember how many of the nails that you swabbed?
To my recollection, I believe it was 5 as well.
Okay.
Again, I don't recall whether or not there were smaller fragments.
And were these also acrylic nails with kind of a natural nail underlay?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Can you please tell the jury what your testing and results were?
Yes, I did perform serological testing on that item. When I performed that testing, blood was indicated. I moved forward with the DNA testing, and I found a DNA mixture of at least 2 individuals obtained from item, 17, correct?
18.
18. On item 18, assuming that Grace Jennings is a contributor to that DNA mixture, there was a foreign male DNA profile, unknown male DNA profile that was deduced from this mixture. Both Kiara McCulley and Isaac Apodaca were eliminated as sources of that foreign DNA profile.
I'd like to go back to item 2.2 for a moment. That was the swabbing or the cutting of the inner waistband seam of the black pants.
Yes.
Okay, and you said that which 3 profiles were resolved from the inner waistband of the pants?
It was a DNA mixture of at least 3 individuals. Kiara McCulley, Isaac Apodaca, and Grace Jennings were all could not be eliminated as being possible contributors to that DNA mixture.
Okay, and what are DNA mixture statistics?
Statistical calculations are something that I perform as a forensic scientist to lend weight to an association. And so in this situation, because I have made associations to known DNA profiles, I'm going to list the statistical calculations to make sense of what this means, with them being included in this DNA mixture. So when I'm looking at these statistical calculations, If there's a higher number, it doesn't mean that somebody maybe is from a particular ethnicity group. What I'm looking at is a range of different numbers from the 5 most common population groups of New Mexico, all random, unrelated individuals. I'm looking at both the highest and the lowest numbers. In this case, the numbers are 1,200 and 40,000 individuals. And so I would need to test roughly somewhere in the number of that range to find at least one other person who may also fit into that DNA mixture. So if I have low numbers, say 1 in 20, at least one other person in this courtroom might be a part of that DNA mixture. If I have a very, very high number, say 1 in 50 quintillion, it's a very rare number, and so I wouldn't expect too many people to fit into that DNA profile, even if I were to test up to that number of individuals. And so when I'm seeing in the range of approximately 1,200 to about 40,000 individuals, I would need to test about that many people to find at least one person who might fit into that DNA profile. So while there is an association and those individuals are included, it's not a super strong association. However, they are still included in that DNA mixture.
Okay. And you mentioned that these are broken, those statistics are broken up by population group.
Correct.
But that cannot reveal the identity of any of those individuals.
No.
So, for example, if it was 1 in 40,000 Apache individuals is one of the population groups, that doesn't have any bearing on the identity of these individuals.
It would not mean that the individual is, for example, Apache as your,
Sure.
as your,
What are the population groups that you use here in the New Mexico? Department
they
of Police?
are Caucasian, Southwest Hispanic, African American, Native American, Apache, and Native American. I'm sorry, it's slipping my head right now. May I refer to my report?
Yes.
It's a lot of information to look at. Thank you. I'm sorry, Navajo.
And why do you use those population groups?
They're the 5 most common population groups in New Mexico.
Okay. I just want to ask, so of all of the items you tested, what is the only item that Isaac Apodaca was included or could not be excluded on?
Item
Objection,
2.2.
Your Honor. That question needs to be rephrased. May we approach?
Yes.
Re-ask a question. When you say cannot be excluded or cannot be eliminated, what does that mean?
When I make the statement that someone cannot be eliminated, it is an inclusionary statement. So that individual is included in that DNA profile.
Okay, thank you. And so going back to my question, what is the only item that Isaac Apodaca was included, or in other words, could not be eliminated from as a contributor to the mixture?
That would be item 2.2, which was the swabbing and cutting of the inner waistband of the black pants.
Thank you. A moment, Your Honor. Pass the witness. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, may I ask one brief question? Did your report or did your findings go through a technical review?
Yes, it did.
Did it go through an administrative review?
It did.
And did you finalize the report?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 83. Would you just review 83 and tell me if you recognize it?
Yes.
And what is State's Exhibit 83?
This is a report that I authored.
Okay. And does this report appear to have been altered or tampered with in any way?
It does not.
Does this fairly and accurately represent the testing and the findings on the items that you discussed today?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time I tendered State's Exhibit 83, the laboratory report for the DNA testing. 84 was the latent, so we had skipped 83, hence why we're back.
Any objection, counsel?
No objection, Your Honor.
83 is admitted.
We don't intend to publish at this time. Okay. And now at this time I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, counsel?
Good afternoon, Ms. Archuleta.
Good afternoon.
I know it's been a long day. You've been waiting outside for quite a while.
That's okay.
So we'll get through this fairly quickly. I just first wanted to talk a little bit about the quality control in your office. It sounds like it's pretty good. So let's talk about cross-contamination. Is it important for the people who collect these swabs and bring them to you? Is it important for them to make sure that they don't cross-contaminate?
We do advise law enforcement to wear gloves and masks, to package things separately so that samples aren't placed in the same container, so they're not cross-contaminating within their own package.
So you do that training for them?
We do advise them, but we don't always perform that training.
But you are aware that the investigators are trained on how to collect evidence without cross-contaminating?
To my knowledge, it's something they are trained on, but I don't know what their protocols involve.
Okay. And then you talked about an independent analysis of your DNA results after you've done the work. Who double-checked your work, I guess is a good way to put it.
When a case is complete by any of our analysts, the case will go through both technical and administrative review. When that is done, it is performed by another qualified DNA analyst in the section and for the technical review, and then it moves on to a different qualified analyst for the administrative review.
Do you remember who it was?
I don't recall.
You know, I couldn't find it on your bench notes. Do you know if it's on there somewhere?
It is within our laboratory management system, and I do have it within the checklist. I do have that information, if I may refer to my notes.
Yes, please.
Okay. The technical review was performed by Eve Tokumaru, and the administrative review was performed by Jennifer Otto. Okay,
and they were both okay with your analysis?
Yes.
And are they both certified as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I may need some technical help up here, Angel. I just want to make sure I'm not going to mess up their computer. I need to plug into this thing. And then put Okay, this is the first time I've tried this, so bear with me. Hey. Okay, so do you recognize this item?
It's difficult for me to determine. This is a blue sweater. However, I do not see my markings for ID on the item, so I can't verify for certain.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm just going to object to
Yeah,
the
Counselor,
rest of the desktoping.
you'll need to go in between images without showing your index and your, there were 3 other pages up there for a second.
Okay. Do you recognize this item?
Again, these appear to be the black pants that I examined, but again, I don't see my markings for ID, so I can't verify for certain that they are in fact the same item.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to unplug this and then, all right. And just for the record, that first item that I showed the witness was DSC 1221 from States 54. And the second one was DSC 1232 from States 54. Okay, and you received the known profiles. Do you call them profiles or standards?
We call them DNA standards or reference samples.
Okay, thank you. You received those known standards or reference standards, is that what you said?
Yes, reference samples or known DNA standards, they're used interchangeably.
Can I just use standards?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You received those standards for Kiara McCulley, Grace Jennings, and Isaac Apodaca from crime scene technician Maria Tena?
To my recollection, yes.
Okay. And you analyzed each one of those to get a genetic profile or a standard for each one of those individuals, right?
That is correct.
And then you compare those samples to any DNA analysis that you do on the items that have been submitted for analysis.
That's correct.
All right. So let's talk about Kiara McCulley here real quick. So the shirt that you tested, the blue shirt that you tested, you said you took the clipping from the cuff?
I believe it was the right cuff area, yes.
The right cuff area? Remember if it was on the top or the bottom?
I don't recall.
And then, did you take another clipping from the back, or did you just swab
I
it?
took the sample, I took a scraping and a cutting from the inner neck area of the shirt,
Okay,
or the sweater.
okay, and you took that one in the back of the neck in order to determine who might have worn it at some point?
Yes,
And you did analysis on that clipping?
correct.
And when you did the analysis on that clipping, you matched it to the standards of Kiara McCulley?
The major DNA profile matched Kiara McCulley.
Okay, so Kiara McCulley's DNA is on that blue sweater on the neck?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. And the major profile did eliminate Grace Jennings and Isaac Apodaca.
That is correct.
So could Kiara McCulley have been the one who was wearing that shirt at some point in time?
I would reasonably expect that that could be the case, yes.
And like you said, you took a clipping from the right,
The right cuff area,
and you did analysis on that clipping.
correct.
And you found a major DNA profile on that one as well.
That's correct.
And that major DNA profile matches as Grace Jennings.
Yes,
And you understand that shirt was taken from a hamper, right, a laundry basket. Do you know that?
I'm not aware of where these were collected from. I know that the items were submitted for DNA testing.
Would it refresh your recollection if you were to look in your bench notes where they were found?
Yes,
Could you?
yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I did have the information that it was found in the laundry basket, and we are unknown who the wearer of the sweater would be.
Okay. Repeat that second part. Is that what, are you testifying to that, or is it you just reading that from your report?
I did read the statement that I
Okay.
wrote down. However, yes, that is why I would collect a sample for wearer DNA, because don't know who the wearer of the item might be.
Gotcha. Okay. And with regard to the black pants, it looks like, well, where did you find those? Where did those come from, according to your notes?
Also found inside the laundry basket.
Okay. And again, one of the reasons why you take clippings from these pants is to determine who might have worn them.
Yes, on the inside waistband portion, yes.
And that's where you clipped it, from the inside waist?
Yes.
Okay. And then you compared that to the majors, the standards that you already knew?
Correct.
And the result was Kiara McCulley could have been wearing those pants, right?
That's a possibility.
Okay. And another clipping, did you take another clipping from the pants, or did you just swab the stain on the right part, on the right leg?
I would need to refer to my notes to answer that question.
Please.
I did take a swabbing of that item.
And then you developed a profile from that swabbing?
Yes.
And that profile matches Grace Jennings, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the bottom line is those pants that were found in the laundry basket could, belong to Kiara McCulley, right?
It's possible.
And they have the blood, or they have the DNA of Miss Jennings on the right pant leg, right?
That's correct.
And that stain also indicated blood.
Yes, that's correct.
And with regard to that shirt.
Are we referring to the blue sweater?
Yes, let's go back to the blue sweater. With regard to that blue sweater.
Yes.
A, it could belong to Kiara McCulley.
Yes, that's
B,
possible.
Okay, B, it did, the right cuff indicated blood from Grace Jennings.
Correct.
And Grace Jennings's DNA is on that right cuff.
Yes, blood was indicated on the cuff, and yes, that did match Grace Jennings.
Okay. And then this tissue, I don't know what item it is.
4.
Okay. Do your notes indicate where that was found?
I would need to
Can you
double
check, please? Yes, thank you.
No, I did not have that information.
And you decided to test it because blood was indicated?
Yes,
And you're finding, so you ran a DNA analysis on that?
Correct.
Right? And you got a profile?
yes.
Call it a major profile?
This was a single source DNA profile, so a profile from one individual.
Okay, so no mixture?
No mixture on this item to my recollection.
And that matched to Kiara McCulley?
Correct.
You need a texture, that's fine.
Thank you.
And then, so let's talk about the sword for just a minute, the handles. Now you made me thirsty. May I get some water here?
Go ahead.
So you did analysis on a swab that you took from the handle of the sword, right?
Yes,
And that swab didn't indicate blood.
correct.
So, and that's the only item out of all these that didn't indicate blood, right?
Yes,
And you found a major DNA profile on the handle of that sword?
yes, that is correct.
Was that one single source?
No, this was a DNA mixture, and the major DNA profile matched Kiara McCulley.
Okay. And then you took another swab from the blade, right?
Yes,
And you went ahead and did an analysis on that,
yes.
rendered some DNA. Was that a mixture or was that a single source?
On the blade of the sword, it was a single source DNA profile.
And it matched to Grace Jennings.
Correct.
Okay. And you said that the odds, what were the odds on Kiara McCulley touching the handle? Or her DNA being on the handle, or her matching
When I
the DNA?
ran the statistical calculations for the association with Kiara McCulley, the probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random who could be the source of that DNA profile is approximately 1 in 360 octillion individuals.
And that octillion is 27 zeros?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. How do y'all figure that number out? With
It's a lot of numbers, right? Yeah, we do have a FBI program that runs these calculations for us. And so we enter the profile information and we are able to generate a report with these statistical calculations.
So you don't have to sit there with a calculator?
We don't have to sit there with a calculator.
Good, okay.
I'm not a mathematician. I can't do that. I could, but it'd take a long time.
I'll bet with 27 zeros, that's quite a bit of data.
A lot of double checking.
Yes. So one of the reasons why you analyze fingernail clippings is to find DNA from a foreign source in them?
To determine if there's DNA that does not belong to the individual that the nails were collected from, yes.
Okay, and so that's why you clipped 5 from the left and 5 from the right?
Well, I received the clippings.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
That's right, you from OMI?
From the law enforcement agency, but they were collected at OMI.
That's right, they came from Officer Maria Tena?
I believe so, yes.
And on the left-handed clippings, you didn't find Isaac Apodaca in those left-handed clippings?
Let me just think about that for a minute. No, I did not.
And on the right-handed clippings, you didn't find Isaac Apodaca?
I did not.
So he's eliminated from both of those?
Yes.
Okay. And let me just go down the list. With regard to Isaac Apodaca only, okay? The right cuff of the sweater, he is eliminated as a source of the major DNA profile.
Correct.
Within the inner neck area of the sweater, Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the major DNA profile.
Correct.
With regard to the staining on the front right leg of the pants, Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile obtained from that.
That is correct.
With regard to the inner waistband, Kiara McCulley, Isaac Apodaca, and Grace Jennings cannot be eliminated as possible contributors to this mixture.
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell me what transfer DNA is?
Transfer DNA would be a situation in which, for example, if I'm holding this water bottle and then maybe somebody else is holding the water bottle after me, they may maybe get some of my DNA maybe on their hands. And so that can happen. It's difficult to determine how frequently it might happen. A lot of it is variable in nature. Whether or not, maybe somebody just wiped their mouth or something, and so they have some wet saliva, that might be more likely to transfer DNA than if it's somebody who just washed and dried their hands and maybe just touched it quickly. And so it is variable in nature, but it does happen.
Okay, so an example also would be Miss Haley was just up here messing with the podium. Now I'm up here messing with the podium. There's a possibility that I have, would that be secondary transfer of DNA
Yes.
from her to me?
Yes.
And then I
If I were to swab your hands and maybe find her DNA profile.
And that would be a secondary transfer.
Yeah, it could be.
And then I'm over there messing with my desk afterwards. I could actually transfer her DNA all the way over there.
Yes.
That's a tertiary transfer.
Correct.
Okay, and that's how we get mixtures like this sometimes.
Occasionally, it's not the only reason that we would get mixtures, but yes, it can happen.
And especially if clothes are put into a basket somewhere.
Yes, I
could
would
get
say that sort of transfer would probably be more likely if there were wet material, but it's not impossible for it to happen with dry as well.
like a wet towel or a wet cloth?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to the stain near the left shoulder, i.e. the scraping of the inner back part of the neck on that red T-shirt,
Yes.
where did that come from?
Are you referring to the red T-shirt?
Yeah.
I would need to refer to my notes to see if I have.
Could you
anything
please?
About that. Item 3 was also recovered from the laundry basket.
Okay, thank you. And Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the major DNA profile obtained from that red T-shirt.
That is correct.
And with regard to the tissue, Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile found on that tissue.
Correct.
With regard to the swab of the staining from the blade of the sword, Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile obtained from that sword.
That is correct.
And that's the blade, right?
That is the blade.
And from the handle of the sword, Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the major DNA profile obtained from that item.
Correct.
Now, that with regard to the swab of the stain from the wall behind the bed, did you get a chance to look at the picture? Is that just the only?
No, I've never seen the picture.
Okay, you just got I'm at a loss for words. That's rare for lawyers, right? You got a explanation of where it came from, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. But Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile obtained from that item as well.
That is correct.
And with regard to the swab from the stain on the pillow, do you remember what color the pillow was?
I don't recall.
Would it show it in your notes maybe?
It might.
Could you check?
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe let's see. Yes, I don't recall that information because I did not have that information. What was submitted to me was a swab of the stain from the pillow.
Okay. And from the swab from that stain from the pillow, Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile obtained.
Correct.
And with regard to the stain from the sheet, Isaac Apodaca is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile obtained from that.
Also correct.
And we've already gone over the left-hand fingernails and the right-hand fingernails. Okay. Give me just a second, okay? You have a second, Your Honor. I think we've kind of answered this in a roundabout way, but if other, and I apologize, I kind of can't read this handwriting, so bear with me, please. If clothes, objects, or surfaces were recently handled by someone, would it be no surprise for their DNA to be, I guess, found on that item?
If they were
Detected.
If a sample, if an item was handled recently, it would not be surprising to find somebody's DNA profile. However, we do have those variabilities in which somebody may or may not leave DNA behind. So maybe they have more staining on their hands for some reason. Maybe somebody isn't wearing a mask and they're talking over something. If they're holding on to something for a while, maybe they're leaving more DNA behind than, somebody else might leave behind. And so there are variable factors associated with that, but it wouldn't be entirely uncommon to find someone's DNA profile if they had been holding or touching an item for a certain amount of time.
Thank you. And I think we've already asked this question as to where the red T-shirt was located. Did we already ask that?
To my recollection, yes.
Okay, I thought so. All right. Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Counsel approach, please. Redirect.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Okay.
Mr. Chiletta, I'm going to approach you with what's previously been admitted as State's Exhibit 70, Exhibit 75. And I actually don't need all of them.
Oh, okay, sure.
I'm sorry. Can you identify State's Exhibit 74, please?
Yes.
And what is State's Exhibit 74?
This is item number 10, which was the DNA standard for Isaac Apodaca.
And how do you know that that's what that item is?
I know that item number 10, based on the submission receipt, was the DNA standard for Isaac Apodaca, and this corresponds with the information on the packaging.
Okay. And can you identify your agency seals on that item?
Yes, so this white seal on the front of the package is our laboratory item barcode. So this has our laboratory item number and case number on it, as well as the agency information on it, the agency case number and what the item actually is.
Okay, and where's the actual seal, aside from where's the seal itself?
Aside from the seal, aside from the label itself, it's sealed across the top with the evidence tape seal from the agency, and then my evidence tape seal is at the bottom in green.
Okay, and the agency seal from SFPD at the top, can you tell what initials are on that seal?
It's difficult to read. It looks like an MT, but I'm not certain.
Are you aware who collected that standard based on your review of the?
To my recollection, it was Maria Tenna.
Okay, and then if you could look at states 75, and tell me if you recognize that.
Yes, same situation here. I have my white barcode on the front from my laboratory with the laboratory case number as well as the item number and all of the agency case information. The agency seal is across the top with the same initials that are on the other, as well as my evidence tape seal at the bottom with my initials and the date as well.
Okay, based on your review of that packaging and understanding of the agencies, who collected that item?
I believe it was Maria Tenna.
Address that, Your Honor.
You were asked about DNA transfer and other issues. How long can DNA linger on an item or be detectable on an item?
That can vary. It just depends on the situation, how the item is stored, where it is stored, whether or not there has been moisture or any sort of chemicals, bacterial activity, that sort of thing. Heat, UV light, chemicals, all of these things can break down DNA. So if it's stored in ideal situations, it can last for an extended amount of time.
What about like fingernail clippings? Why are fingernail clippings routinely collected and tested?
Fingernail clippings are routinely collected because if there is some sort of altercation, it is thought that someone who might be defending themselves may get DNA from the person that they are having the altercation with under their nails. And so those are frequently collected for examination purposes as far as DNA is concerned.
Well, my question is actually about the period of time that DNA could remain underneath fingernails, if you're aware.
That's difficult to determine. It depends on how well someone washes their hands. When you think about situations in which, like the artificial nails that we were talking about before, there's that little groove in between where the natural nail sits and the artificial nail sits that kind of collects a little bit of dirt, debris, skin cells, et cetera. So it could be variable as far as what is collected. It might be a lot of DNA. It might be not a lot of DNA.
Can DNA in those sorts of pockets or grooves be retained for a long period of time?
I would say that would be a reasonable thought, yes.
Thank you. And then a minute ago, I think I heard you say that someone who has just washed their hands and dried them may be less likely to transfer DNA to an item they touch. Is that correct?
Well, less likely than if you had, maybe just wiped your mouth or something. You don't have a wet saliva stain or something on your hands. So if you have some sort of wet staining or something on your hand, it would be more likely to transfer. Less likely if something is dry.
Moment, Your Honor.
Counsel, approach, please.
Did you receive any swabs from any door handles?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor. We will reserve this witness out of an abundance of caution.
Okay. You're being reserved. You may step down. The attorneys will be in contact with you if you need to return to testify. Don't discuss your testimony with anyone else, and don't seek out any information about the case or the other testimony.
Understood.
You may step down. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
How's everyone in the jury box doing? Can we go about another half hour?
This concludes today's proceedings in State of New Mexico versus Isaac Apodaca. The trial continues as both the prosecution and the defense present evidence, question witnesses, and make their arguments before the court. The case has not reached a final verdict, and Isaac Apodaca remains presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Stay tuned for continued coverage of the proceedings and future trial updates.